come up with? Just shout them out to me. Doesn't show up or absent. Okay. Negative. Doesn't have communication skills. No experience. All right. I'm sorry? No, poor organization. I'm sorry? No, lack of diversity. Okay. What else? Anything else? All right, so lack of communication. All right. That's all right. It's an important one. So I was thinking last night about what you guys might say. And so here's the list I came up with. Dishonest, poor communicator, indecisive, lacks courage, overbearing, mixed messages, arrogant, no follow through. Pretty close? All right, how about you guys? Effective. Good listener. Knowledgeable. Confident, leads by example. Planner. Holds people accountable. Competent. What's that? I still couldn't hear you. Put the line up. All right. Let's see. Listens, holds others accountable, gives direction, leads by example, patient, provides feedback, transparent, empowers others. How did I do? Whenever I go into a new organization, one of the first things somebody says to me is they pull me aside and say, "Hey, Rodney, you got to understand something here." I'm like, "Yeah, what's that?" They said, "You know what? We're different. We're different here." I had a guy out in California slam his hand down on the table. He goes, No. You really got to understand. We are a unique group of individuals in a unique work environment, just like everybody else. And he's absolutely right. You're a unique group of individuals in a unique work environment. There's not another set of you doing what you do with the people you do it with, where you do it, for the customers you do it with the equipment you do it. There's not another set anywhere in the world. And just like everybody else, when I ask people to create these two lists, the same words show up. And I've had these lists created in all over the United States, in California, on the West Coast, and the East Coast, Northeast, down south, central part of the country. Same words show up. With groups in Switzerland and Italy and Belgium and Namibia, Africa, and Seoul, South Korea, same words show up. I've had these lists created with CEOs and senior leaders and managers all the way through the organization to individual contributing employees, and the same words show up. I've had these lists created with construction, mining, industrial, manufacturing, food distribution, food processing, insurance. Same words show up. I've actually had these lists created in French and in Italian, and even though I speak neither, the words look pretty similar. The same words show up. So if the same words show up, it doesn't matter where you are, location, or your widget, or what you make, or the language you speak, or where you are in an organization, if we know it when we see it, why is it so difficult to be an effective leader? And again, it's not about organizational authority, about influencing behaviors. It's getting people to do what we need them to do, to work towards a common goal. Can you put this list back up? So if we know it when we see it, why is it so difficult to always be on that list on the left? And why have all of us, many of us, most of us had an experience with people, the list on the right? The reason it's so difficult is the same behaviors are on both lists. The exact same behavior. If I'm working with somebody who's new to my crew and never done what we're doing and is new to the environment, and they're excited and motivated and confident and really want to show me what a good worker they are, and I give them very clear, specific directions all the way down to put tab A into slot B, I'm exactly what they need me to be for them. I give clear directions. I lead by example. I provide them a ton of feedback. And a moment later, with that same person, we're talking about a task that they have done before, they're good at, they know how to do it, but frankly, they're just not that motivated or confident in their ability to do it. Maybe last time they did it, they saw somebody get hurt, or they got hurt. And I tell them exactly what they should do, all the way down to put tab A into slot B. I'm no longer on that list on the left. I'm now a micromanaging SOB. Because it's not about the direction they need, it's about the support they need. If I have somebody who's highly confident and committed and competent in what they're doing and knows how to do it and does it well and they like it, and I say, hey, you know what, you're good at what you do, here's my expectation, go for it, let me know how it goes. I'm empowering them to go make the decisions on how the work gets done. I'm exactly what they need me to be. And a moment later with that same person, if they are not sure on what they're doing and not sure from a confidence standpoint or motivated, I'm not empowering, I'm abandoning. And again, it's not about organizational authority, it's about what we do for each other. And that's what makes those two lists so difficult in figuring out how do I stay on that list on the left? It's because of what I do for the people I work with. What do they need from me? And if we were focused on what people need from us instead of what just we wanted to do, then we would never hear this. I just knew somebody was going to get hurt doing that. We still hear that, right? Might even said it sometimes. And I think we hear that or see that because we're out of balance from a pace standpoint. You guys know who Murphy is? Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong. Think about it. Think about all the things you do every single day that goes perfectly fine. And as things go perfectly fine day after day after day after day, what do we tend to ask of ourselves and ask of each other? To do more and to do it faster. So we start to pick up the pace and we get out of balance from a pace standpoint. So how do we make sure that we are not getting too far out of balance, too far out on that pace standpoint? And it's about making sure we have that constant evaluation, that we're checking in with each other. And that constant evaluation is really about creating that be successful mentality versus a be safe mentality. That be safe mentality is driven by us, how we measure safety results, right? We look at safety and say, hey, we want 0. I can give you 0. You want 0? That's easy. Just shut it down and go home. But that's not the option. We have to have that balance. So how do we create that balance of creating that culture of success? 3 quick areas I want you to think about. First is being aware. And I don't mean around situational awareness, although that's important. What I'm talking about is awareness of what is going on in your work environment. What is the culture that you've created? How many of you, when you get done here, maybe it's done your day of work, and is it 490 that's right out here? Professional on the side of the road. You know, the ones who drive the cars with the flashing lights. In fact, we joke about it, right? This morning I made it down here from the airport in Rochester in 20 minutes. I was flying. Cool. Yep, driving home late at night. It's dark. There's not another car on the road. You can see for miles. And we come to a red light. And we stop. And we sit there. And we wait for that light to turn green. Because we don't run red lights. It's not an acceptable behavior in our society. You never hear somebody say, I made it down here from the airport in 20 minutes. I ran 14 red lights. Because we look at them like you're crazy. You don't do that. That's not acceptable. So let's go back into your work environment. Are there some rules in your work environment that are hard, fast? Absolutely. We do not violate that rule, no matter what. Doesn't matter who's around or who's watching or what customer or what time of day or into the quarter or into the month. We don't violate those rules. And are there some rules in your work environment that, they're more like those white signs on the side of the road? We're close. If nobody's around, the end of the shift, end of the day, we've got to know which ones are which. And then there are two questions we should be asking and talking about within the organization. One is, if that rule is perceived as flexible within our organization, do we still need it? It's a legitimate question to ask. And with the right input, figure out, do we need it or not need it? The second question, that's the tougher one. Second question requires us to hold that mirror up to us and say, what is it that we are doing individually, each of us? What are we saying or not saying or doing or not doing that's communicating to the people around us that that behavior is acceptable in our culture? Because we let it go. If we're not willing to say something. The next is about being present. And being present is about having that one-on-one contact that we so much now is getting, those opportunities are getting fewer and fewer and farther between. We're doing way more communicating via text and email, and we don't have that interaction, that one-on-one personal interaction that we should need to have. And when we do, it's got to be purposeful. It can't just be a throwaway, because they're too far in between and they're too valuable. I was on my way to Cincinnati, Ohio to work with some gypsum board manufacturing leadership team at one of their plants. And on my way there, to get there from Sacramento, where I live, I had to fly through Denver and then Denver to Cincinnati. And so in Denver, they announced the flight and everybody jumps out of their seat and rushes to the gate so we can all get on the airplane at the same time. I'm not sure how that's supposed to work. But sorry, I start to get on a soapbox of mine. And so finally I get up there, I scan my ticket, and I'm walking down the jetway, and now we're backed up because somebody's trying to put their entire life up into the overhead bin. And I'm a leaner, so I like to lean on things. So in that situation, I'll turn sideways and I'll lean against the hand railing that's on the jetway down to the plane. And that way I can see when I can move forward onto the plane. I can also see the people coming down the jetway behind me. And I look up, and there's this young couple walking down arm in arm. He and I make eye contact for just a second. He says, "Hey." I said, "How you doing?" And the words aren't out of my mouth that she drops her arm from his and she jams her elbow right into his ribs. He goes, "Ow, what was that for?" And she looks at him and points at me and says, "He asked you a question." Before he could respond, I said, "That's okay, because I don't care." In fact, after seeing that interaction, I'm pretty sure he wasn't doing so well. So it was just my way of saying hi, right? We do that all the time. "Hey, how you doing? How you been?" I told that story when I get to Cincinnati, and they chuckled. And then one of them said, "You know what? It's what we do to each other all day long. How you doing? How you been? How are things? Good, great, fine." We don't mean it. We don't take the time to actually listen to each other and discover what's going on and what could be getting in our way and keeping us from producing the outstanding results that we expect from each other around productivity, around quality, around safety. Taking the opportunity to actually wonder how people are doing. And then to be able to provide feedback. We are really good at giving negative feedback when it comes to safety. If we say something at all, it's usually, and then we'll turn around and walk past the tent again. What if we change that? What if we started looking at the things that we ask people to do from a safety standpoint and actually started providing them some positive feedback for doing it? Because the internal feedback I feel when I put these glasses on right now is not that I feel safer, because I didn't feel any risk prior. So I don't feel any safer. What I feel is I can't see as well. They're uncomfortable. So what do? It's a normal behavior. So if I want people in my area to put these down here, I've got to provide them external, positive, immediate, certain consequences or feedback to get them to do what I need them to do. And who are the only people who can provide you and your coworkers with positive, immediate, certain consequences for the behaviors we expect of them? You guys. It's how we create the culture. and then being balanced. And that balance is really about sending the message. So if you hear any of these phrases, since we are behind, just this one time, this is an emergency. My hope is the person you're talking to stops you and says, hold on. Are you asking me to sacrifice productivity, quality, or safety? Because my guess is they're not going to ask you. They're going to nod their head a couple times, and they're going to run off and go do what they think you think is important. And which are they going to sacrifice? Every time. This is an emergency. My father was a retired firefighter and fire chief. The emergency ended when there was nobody left in the building. Then it's just managing a fire. But we throw that word around all the time. It's emergency. And our thought process changes. We do things differently than we would do in a normal circumstance. This label is on the side of a piece of equipment, emergency feed on the side, turn knob. It's there in French, if you understand French. That makes sense. Maybe somebody's stuck and we got to feed them out, or pressure buildup and we got to release that pressure. Except for this label is on the manual paper towel dispenser. Maybe. There it is. Manual paper towel dispenser at the Bellagio Casino Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada. What kind of an emergency would that be? It's not even one of those ones where you wave your hand on it. You just reach up there and pull the towels out. We use that term too often. And it creates that situation where people make a decision. And like I said earlier, I don't think many of you drive to work in the morning thinking, boy, I hope I make a decision today that results in me or somebody else getting hurt. But we make those decisions based on two things: the information we have and the culture in which we exist. So when we ask about, nope, we're going to jump past those four areas: knowledge, experience, focus, and pace. Who has the influence in your work environment over those four areas? You guys. You guys create it. You create it. And at the end of the day, it's just about asking yourself what it is that you make. And you can drop the reins and grab the mane and hang on for the ride. Or you can pick up those reins and you can think about what are your values and how do they show up every day in your behaviors. You can concentrate on what is the culture of success that you have to create that's going to allow you to produce the results you need to produce around outstanding from a safety standpoint. And you can take the time to be aware and balanced and present so that we can together create outstanding safety results. And I'm confident after spending today with you in here and the sessions you're going to go through the rest of the day, that you can leave here with the tools you need to build a culture of safety success for you and the people around you. I thank you very much for your time and attention. Go out and create success.
Here, I'll take this one.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you very much. Yes, fist bump. So the culture of safety, I'm so grateful too for the culture of philanthropy. So just want to let you know that for the first certification session, just about everyone's going to stay in this room. But we want to give you a few moments to either use the facilities or grab some coffee or, I don't know, buy a raffle ticket or mini as well. I've got my friends Anna and Allison on this side of the room. My coworker Megan and I will be over on this side of the room. Again, $1 each. It's 50-50. We'll choose the winner just after lunch at 1:30, but come on back and we'll get going in like 3 minutes or so. Thank you so much. Give these to you guys for now? Or do you want them to stay up there?
One can go up and one can stay. Put the orange up on the podium. Orange?
go.
ready to go? Gentlemen, ladies, can we invite you to return back to the main stage area for our next presentation? Thanks very much. Yes.
Oh, I just is not going to be able to. They said they're going to be flipping back and forth between us and the slides. So, easiest way for me there is it got broke up in groups here.
Yeah. So what does this do?
Okay, this is their slide advancer. So press that button there and it'll move to a slide. So I guess I don't know how often they're going to fade in and out.
Yeah. Okay. So if I hit that button first, is it going to go to here?
It should.
Okay. Well, let's try it.
I'm going to put.
One more call. It's not last call, but okay, we are pretty close to being all assembled. And so we'll begin this presentation. Understanding that this is not one of your chosen alternatives, we will do our best to make this worth your while. My name is Jeff Clark. I am General Counsel to Livingston Associates. I am joined in this presentation by JD, Risk Control at Livingston Associates. His real name is John DeWispelier, but he has 7 vowels in his name, and so we go by JD, and we're grateful for that. Again, thank you for being here. You probably are aware by this point in time that New York State law requires all employers to have a sexual harassment policy and to train their employees on an annual basis in sexual harassment matters. But before you decide on how you're going to respond to the next 30 minutes or so, let me suggest a context for you that may help you in deciding on that response. I very much appreciate the 2 speakers that preceded us, Jennifer Johnson and Rodney Grieve. They told stories that introduced a theme that we hope to continue with this presentation. Jennifer Johnson spoke of a personal tragedy in her family, one that has all of the associated elements of a real tragedy. There was suffering and fear and anxiety, and another common element is the Johnsons' inability to address that challenge alone. And that challenge was correctly perceived by their community as a community challenge. And so a variety of resources and skills and talents were collected together to provide a response to that family challenge. And as she has indicated, for which she is very grateful. Mr. Grieve spoke again of a community in which challenges are addressed collectively, and I'm thinking that both presentations may have resonated with each one of you for the same reason, which is that challenges are not just associated with one person or another. I expect that every one of you has had your own personal challenge, and that you have found that challenge too big for you to address alone. And maybe you have reached out to friends and family, maybe you've reached out to your faith community, maybe you've reached out to agencies and not-for-profits who are set up to address things like that. But I expect every one of you understands that suffering and that fear and that anxiety associated with a challenge that you cannot face alone. And so I would suggest that as you consider that, you allow us to give you reasons to apply that same analysis to what will follow in the next 30 minutes or so. Let me ask you to contemplate a statement that will hopefully begin this analysis. State and federal laws strictly regulate the environment in which human beings share their skills with one another in the pursuit of economic prosperity. There's a variety of issues that are contained in that statement. Issue 1, the skillful management of the human resource is directly related to the success of any business enterprise. Issue 2, the protection of the human resource serves a vital societal need. And issue 3, the human resource is you and me, trying to realize our best selves in the only way that is possible, by fully participating in this school that we call community. We carefully staff our businesses with people of diverse talents, training, and perspectives in order to produce a product or a service that we believe improves the lives of others in some real way. Allowing a disruption in the way these people interact to achieve that purpose is inefficient, it's wasteful, and for our purposes today, it's illegal. Sexual harassment is such a disruption that it should be viewed as cancerous to the achievement of that purpose of us combining our talents with others to achieve something good. And so, if you will, as we present to you the law with respect to sexual harassment, you will consider it not only as a requirement in order to stay out of trouble with somebody, but that you will consider it to be a vital part of how the community in which you perform your best work is allowed to develop and grow. So what follows is a review of the law with respect to sexual harassment and the ways in which we understand it, we discourage it, and we remedy it. I'm not very good at staying on slides. They seem very confining to me. I like to kind of go off in my own territory, but we're going to try the slide approach and see how that goes. It also requires some technical skill that I have none of. But in the community, my friend JD is going to help me, and hopefully I'll be of help to him. Okay, sexual harassment, discrimination, prevention training. Some preliminary matters. We've kind of started down this road, but let's go through them for the sake of honoring those who put these slides together. All of the information that you will hear today and C should be somewhere within the sexual harassment policy that each of your companies are required to develop and maintain. If you are in charge of developing and maintaining that policy and you see something missing, please take note. It says at the bottom of the slide, feel free to ask questions. This is kind of a tough room for questions. I saw that you shouted things out to Rodney Grieve, and that works fine for me. Doesn't this kind of feel like halftime at the Super Bowl? Addressing sexual harassment issues. We'll get into the reporting and investigation parts of this, but suffice it to say at this point that supervisors, you're the first line of defense. Complaints, allegations, concerns come to you first. And what you do with them is very important. And we'll get into that in just a bit. But now I'd like to turn the time over to JD and have him educate us with respect to the law. Okay, thank you.
Not quite the orator that Jeff is, but then I didn't go to law school. Sexual harassment definition. Sexual harassment is a form of sex discrimination that includes defined harassment on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, self-identified or perceived sex, gender expression, gender identity, and the status of being transgender. There's two types of sexual harassment: the quid pro quo and the hostile work environment. Quid pro quo harassment or pervasive construction worker talk, some of that goes on, it could be found to be illegal nowadays. Some examples of sexual harassment: repeated requests for dates, obscene or dirty remarks, sexually explicit or lewd jokes, and sexual innuendos, physically explicit comments, offensive gestures, kissing, talking about sexual activities, making sexual advances, or sexually oriented email or text messaging and social media posts. Another one's gender stereotyping. This occurs when personality traits are considered inappropriate because they do not conform to other people's ideas or perceptions about how individuals of either gender should look or act, and extends to looks, their speech, personality, or their lifestyle. Performing a job that's usually performed or was performed in the past by persons of the opposite sex. Gender, another term. Gender Expression Non-Discrimination Act of 2019. It's designed to protect gender identity and expression under the New York Human Rights Law. Gender identity or expression, a person's actual or perceived gender-related identity, appearance, behavior, expression, or other gender-related characteristic, regardless of the sex assigned to that person at birth, including but not limited to the status of being transgender. Harassment, other protected categories. Behavior towards another individual because, call it inappropriate behavior towards another individual because of either their race, their color, national origin, citizenship, religion, gender identity, their age, physical or mental disability, genetic information, marital or familial status, their military or veteran status, domestic violence victim status, gender expression, or known association with these. Other types of harassment include behaviors similar to sexual harassment, such as verbal conduct, such as jokes, threats, epithets, derogatory comments, mocking, mimicking, nicknames, or slurs. Visual conduct such as derogatory posters, photographs, cartoons, of emails, text messages, or social media posts, and treating a person based on stereotypical assumptions and practical jokes.
Okay, what does it look like? Actually, before I continue, I failed to mention that if any of you have not been trained at your business, this qualifies. And so I think you have an opportunity to prove that you attended this kind of training with the program you were given, and we would encourage you to do that. Otherwise, you'll have to sit through this again somewhere. What does it look like? In this new age of awareness, we now also have a new age of vocabulary that we have to become familiar with. And so harassment, while it has traditionally been male and female oriented, no longer does the law discriminate on that basis. Harassment can be any kind of sexual harassment can be any kind of interaction between men and women, between men and what we now call non-binary individuals, meaning non-traditional male-female individuals, transgender individuals. So we have a host of others who are brought into this this net, safety net, if you will. And I think rather than require you to memorize all of the new terminology and the definitions, suffice it to say that sexual harassment can happen between any two individuals regardless of their circumstance. It covers not only employees but also applicants for employment. It covers interns, paid and unpaid. It covers contractors, consultants, vendors, and all of those who interact in the community that we call our workplace. This is where it starts to get a little complicated. Where can it happen? Well, it can certainly happen in the workplace. And for most of us, the workplace is a pretty broad geographic area. It can happen in the office, it can happen in the field. And in fact, oftentimes in my experience, it happens a lot in the field. And where we have an opportunity to kind of be out and doing our thing and maybe not feel so confined by the physical and symbolic structure of the building, and we maybe let our guard down. It can be at unpaid or paid official work gatherings, parties, etc. And it can also happen now on the social media where it has an impact on the work environment. I used to be the compliance officer at another company, and I would routinely field calls from people who believed that they were being harassed sexually or otherwise by their boss, and oftentimes I would have to tell them that the fact that your boss is a jerk is not illegal. It's unfortunate, but not all conflict between employees is covered by this policy. It is not harassment or discrimination to have a personality conflict, and in fact they happen a lot. We're human beings and we interact with one another and we bring our own backgrounds and prejudices and perspectives in, and they interact on a regular basis, and there are times when we find ourselves at odds with one another. That's a normal part of, or another have a difficult or unfriendly personality, or legitimate criticisms with respect to performance. Those are all a normal part of working in a community. There are issues that we have to deal with in developing a workforce that works well together despite those differences and challenges, and you all know something about that, I'm sure. But these are not events that would require the law to step in and take action. However, as I've suggested, even though some conduct may not be illegal, it in fact may be inappropriate, and if we're all going to in fact get at this purpose of providing some good product or service that does the world good and that we can be proud of, it requires that in fact we address all of these differences between us in appropriate and responsible ways. Okay, what should you do if you are harassed?
Okay, here's some of the steps to take. If you experience workplace harassment, you should tell the offender or harasser to stop. You may say you find the conduct offensive. You may ask the person to respect your sensitivities and stop the contact. You may let the person know that you will follow up with a supervisor or other appropriate member of management if the conduct continues. If you feel unsafe or uncomfortable taking any of those actions, then do not do so. Involve a company management immediately. Go to the HR department, go to the legal department, supervisor, human resources department. You may be required to fill out a complaint form, which should be available from your human resource person. You can call, email, or visit to report. Your supervisor or any other member of management you can report to. They may help you fill out the complaint form, or you call, email, visit your supervisor to report. Duty to report. Your company can only prevent and remedy behavior that it's aware of. Each individual has a duty to report and to exercise reasonable care to avoid harm. If you see something, say something. I think we've all heard that lots of times in other situations. Witnesses of harassment have an obligation to report to HR. So it doesn't matter whether you and your coworker are having an exchange. If somebody, they may not even work for your company, overhears it, finds it offensive, they can report it, and an investigation has to ensue. And reporting deters future inappropriate behavior.
Just a brief shout out to me. Changing slides from the back there, it's not that easy. It reads like Russian. Okay. So you observe conduct, or in fact, you are the victim of conduct that offends these rules. What do? There are reporting mechanisms, as has been suggested, that in fact allow you, and under most policies I've seen, require you to bring it to the attention of someone else. And in fact, it might be a supervisor, or that might be the problem, and you need to go to someone beyond the supervisor. But the reporting mechanisms should all be established and clearly understood by all who are subject to them. What happens after a report is made, or what should happen? An investigation should follow. And it's very important in these kinds of matters to make sure that that investigation has integrity. I think we all know that there are opportunities for people to take advantage of one another by using this system for purposes for which it was not designed. It was not designed to settle scores. It was not designed to take advantage of one another. It was designed to address legitimate issues of behavior that involve harassment due to the gender or sexual orientation of the person who was the victim. So the investigation has to make sure that it addresses those issues. Is this a good faith claim? Is there evidence to substantiate it? Are there witnesses? And are there any documents that emails or social media posts, etc., that identify this as a legitimate problem. The investigation should cover all of those issues. People with knowledge of this act or potentially prior acts should be interviewed thoroughly. Documents should be discovered and maintained, and the investigation should be done in a prompt manner. Lots of things are on our respective to-do lists, but when this comes in, it receives top priority. It must, because it's of critical importance to the health and safety of all those who work within your environment. Confidentiality is important and should be maintained throughout the process. However, confidentiality cannot give way to an incomplete investigation, and there may be instances in which the accused and the accuser need to understand who they are so that this process can go forward with integrity. You have no idea where you are, do you? Because I'm off script. Sorry, JD. After an investigation has been completed, a report is generated and the report is shared. It has to be shared with management, senior management. It must also be shared with the one who has been accused as well as the one who is the accuser, so that in fact all sides are allowed to embellish and enhance the investigation and reporting process. What happens if in fact it is determined that a violation of law has occurred? Well, then that's the job of the Human Resources Department and the disciplinary process to address those issues responsibly. Disciplinary process could include warnings, it could include a written or verbal, and it also could include termination if the circumstances warrant that. If you are not the accuser or the victim, but a witness, it's your obligation to participate fully so that in fact this process can do what it's supposed to do. And finally, retaliation. The law protects those who bring the claims and those who participate in the investigation process. If a good faith claim is made, the company or any individual is not permitted by law to retaliate against the individual bringing the complaint. So you've gone through the system and you still don't have the satisfaction that you believe you deserve. There are outside resources that are available. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and the New York State Division of Human Rights all have processes by which complaints can be filed, and the investigation, if it's not satisfactorily handled in-house, will now be in the hands of a third party. I have gone through that process a number of times. It's not that much fun to deal with the third party, EEOC or the DHR, who will take every opportunity to make assumptions that are that may not be in the company's best interest. Use the process in-house to the degree that you can. If it doesn't, however, and you are a complainant, you do have other avenues. And the EEOC and the Division of Human Rights are very effective avenues of remedy. Okay, to finish this off, we're going to go through a couple of case studies. We'll present facts, and we'll ask the rhetorical question, well, is this legal, or what would you do? You don't have to shout out a response if you don't want to, but we'll present these case studies to you. Again, with respect to questions, JD and I will be available after the presentation. If there's anything you'd like to discuss further, we're sticking around for the balance of the program, so feel free to ask us about instances that you might want some further help with. Okay, we just had a difference of opinion and we worked it out right in front of you. I thought he was supposed to do the next case study and he thought I was. Okay. We all queued up. Sahara recently started as an administrative assistant at her company. Her supervisor is Robert. One day, Robert invites her out to lunch. He pays for her lunch, and on the walk back to work, puts his arm around her shoulders, rubs her back, and explains how excited he is to have her on the team. Sarah is surprised and uncomfortable, but she doesn't tell Robert. What should she do? Any brave individual out there want to venture a guess? Tell Robert. Thank you, Planted Stooge. Appreciate that very much. The sexual harassment is not just a matter of intent. You can, in fact, violate the law even if you don't have the intent to violate the law. In this instance, the perception of the victim is critical. One may perceive themselves to be in danger, or they may perceive themselves to be limited in the way in which they can interact in their community. And so you need to understand how the things that you do, maybe in the normal course, are perceived by all of those around you. And as Mr. Wurzba has suggested, Robert needs to know that this is behavior that you find that you are uncomfortable with. So everybody may not be uncomfortable with it, and if you're not, there's no duty to report. But if in fact this is behavior that you find unacceptable personally, then Robert needs to know about that. I'm doing the next one, right? Tom and Diane have been friends and worked together for years. They love having a good laugh. Tom and Diane especially enjoy poking fun at each other. One will make a joke about the other's sex life, and the other will give it right back with a similar comment. They work on a job site where others are nearby, and you overhear them and find their discussions inappropriate and distracting. That bother anybody? Peter? Go. See, it's not that hard, right? It may be Tom and Diane might have a banter that they find perfectly acceptable, and if that's the case, good for them. But sharing that in the presence of others who may not perceive it the same way is the problem. In fact, again, it's a matter of perception. And if in fact Tom and Diane have a conversation in front of others that is perceived to be offensive, then Tom and Diane need to know about it. And if you, for one reason or another, aren't comfortable telling Tom and Diane, then go through the chain. Talk to your supervisor. Bring this to the attention of someone who, in fact, can have that communication with Tom and Diane.
Okay. Next case study. Carla works as a licensed heavy equipment operator. Some of her male coworkers think it's fun to tease her. Carla often hears comments like, "Watch out, here comes that crazy woman driver," in a joking manner. Also, someone keeps putting handmade sign on a porta potty at the work site that says "men only." Should Carla report this? Pete, you want to take a stab at it? Okay. It depends on if Carla finds the behavior offensive. She can report it at any time when she decides enough is enough. So she might take it a couple of times, tell the guys to cut it out, continues. She needs to let them know that it's unwelcome, and continued teasing subjects Carla to inferior terms, conditions, or privileges of employment, and cannot be considered petty or trivial. The last case study is no job for a woman. Some of Susan's coworkers are strongly opposed to her presence in the traditionally all-male profession of the laborer. These coworkers have sometimes said things to her like, "You're taking away a job from a man who deserves it. You should be home with your kids. And what kind of mother are you?" Is this sexual harassment? Hey, The behaviors are directed at her because she is a woman and appear to be intended to intimidate her and cause her to quit her job. While not sexual in nature, this harassment is because of her sex and creates a hostile work environment. So another case where just mind what you say to your coworkers or anyone around you. We'll open the floor up to any questions you may have.
We may open the floor up. I think we're now caught up. Just kind of a final word. We're talking about the environment in which we all spend a fair amount of our time, right? We sometimes spend more time at work than we do at home. And the environment in which we work needs to be protected just like we would protect anything else of value to us, allowing everybody, no matter who they are or where they came from or what they believe, to exercise their talents and develop themselves so that the business environment receives their best is the only way that, in fact, any of us, any business enterprise, can hope to achieve its best result. So it's our environment. We need to protect it, all of us. Every one of these case studies I've seen before. This is real life. It happens. And we need to protect our community so that, in fact, we can be our best selves as well. Thanks very much for your attention. Make sure you get your program stamped to show that you were in attendance. And again, in order to keep things on track, please see JD or I if you want to discuss any of this stuff further. We'll be around, okay? Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Excuse me, quick announcement. We still have a brief fire safety training session before you get your stamp. So please return to your seat. We're talking about 3-minute fire safety training.
Okay, I'm Andy from Monroe Extinguishers. Just going to talk to you briefly about fire extinguishers. I'm going to start with the classes of fire extinguishers. Class A being an ordinary combustible like wood, paper, cardboard, something like that. Class B, liquefied flammables like gasoline, grease, oil. C, energized electrical fires. D, burning metals. Then we're going to go with K class, which is a commercial kitchen, which you probably don't run into much with you, but it's a commercial kitchen fire extinguisher for cooking media. And most of the extinguishers that you have are ABC type, and that encompasses those three ABC that I just spoke of. And you have a few purple K extinguishers, which are just designed for better use in like the gas type fires. One of the things I wanted to touch on was that you guys are driving trucks with fire extinguishers in them, or you should be anyway. And also, those of you that work in the buildings have fire extinguishers. You should be checking them monthly. Checking for condition, no damages, the gauge still shows full, nothing's clogging the hose or nozzle. It's important to check those things because you never know when you're going to need the fire extinguisher. Now I'm going to talk about how to use the fire extinguisher. They have the acronym PASS, which just stands for P for pull the pin, break the tamper seal, aim the fire extinguisher at the base of the fire, and then if you have squeeze the handle so to regulate the chemical coming out, and then sweep to sweep across the fire at the base, sweeping it away from you.
And when you've done that and you feel you have it out, you should never turn your back. You should step back, make sure it doesn't flare up. And let's see. I'm just going to show you this fire extinguisher. So this is the flag seal. You just break that off. Pull the pin. Pull the pin. Use the hose. Use your finger to guide the chemical. I can't use the handle at the same time because of the mic, but you'd use the handle to regulate the amount of chemical coming out. And you'd sweep from the base, side to side, away from you until it's out. I'm just going to talk quick about a story I have of a customer and how important it is to have a policy and a program of safety and pay attention to your surroundings. I had a customer who had no policies, had no training for their employees, and they had 2 shifts, and a young guy who just started out, first job, was grinding and his sparks were flying over his shoulder, and what he didn't know is first shift had pumped out gasoline and diesel out of a tank, and it was sitting in a barrel with no lid behind him, and the sparks, of course, were going where else? Right in the container full of gas and diesel, and it blew up behind him. He tried to put the fire out. He'd never seen a fire extinguisher, didn't know what to do with it. He got up close, he blasted it, it blew gas and diesel all over the wall. It made it worse. He just didn't know what to do. Long story short, the shop burnt to the ground. Now they have a policy, they have training, and it's kind of important. So keep in mind your surroundings, your hazards around you as you're working. Not everybody knows what you've been doing that day. Those guys should never have left that gas and diesel just to sit there without anyone knowing it was there. They should have done something with it. Just think about those things when you're in your daily business of working, what you're doing and what you're leaving behind that somebody might not know about. And we have a simulator in the back that you can try. It's got fire extinguishers that are laser, and they're timed to work just like a fire extinguisher, and the amount of time it empties, it's weighted to feel like a normal fire extinguisher. And we'd love for you to come back and give that a shot and ask us any questions if you'd like. But that's what I've got for you today.
All right, everyone, thanks so much for your attention. Now is the time you can get up, stretch your legs, get those sheets out, and yes, they'll be stamped on your way out these doors. Also, as you exit, we ask that you take all your belongings with you, especially if there's any on the tables out there. We want to make sure you have your valuables with you, and make sure that you clear off the tables as we get prepared for lunch in just a little bit. We invite you to check your personal schedules inside the folder and find which room to go to for your first session. We're going to cut this break a little bit short to try to get back on schedule. My fabulous fellow ticket sellers will
seminar, you will be able to just catch up with us in just a little bit. Okay, you grab your belongings, so if you have it with you and you can leave it with us later, and it's still on, right? Yeah. All right, again, we're going off on tickets and back together with this session so much.
It's like there's a right. Here we go.
Where do we start? Good. You got that, you got the speed. You got everything Okay, and you have joystick works fine? Yep. Shit. No thanks, I just took one. Oh, good. Yes. Well, I think I just went to plug the USB back in and we're not getting, is the output configured to stream? USB streaming? Yes. Lots of audio. Video bus. Microphones here, but I'm not seeing, I'm seeing the end of the other one. I'm not seeing the new stream. I'm seeing. Do you want me to power the mic on and put it on the stand? Yeah, turn on the speakers. Speakers are turned down so we can crank the audio if we need. Is it perfect yet? Yeah, it's perfect now. You know what it is? Perfect for right now. There's a guy that I used to work with who would always say, I got audio. I hate to stop it and restart it, but I'm going to have to. But there's some truth, yeah. I didn't say it really good. I don't see this on here. Yeah, let's go. You guys probably already know this. I think everybody's probably a little worried about sound transferring between us, so I'm assuming you guys are dialing up and down based on... And Chris is going to try and modulate his, he's going to try and not use the speakers. Awesome. Right. I'll give you a rough. I guess we have to stop streaming and restart it. I'm not trying to see where we're getting the audio. I think as long as not a quiet talker. No, I'm not Okay, cool. Okay, let's, yeah, probably gotta wait for it to catch up here. And a second, maybe both games to begin, right? And they're going to do like a soft announcement to say I'm seeing the audio from there. Okay, and your laptop. I'm going to thanks. I'm trying not to use the speaker. Hey Chris? Yeah, I don't know how. Do you want to say before we begin, we have run the screens, we have anybody who they got to get a screen or something else, they get a screen again. Yeah, we got to make sure they got it fixed on the way in and out so we can say we're trying to find it. Maureen, Chris, Maureen, which end are you? Yes, you see the screen for the sound on the sound down that way.
Think about a lake.
It's picking up.
Good. This is Anthony. You have caffeine, coffee. I'm wondering if I should get started.
I can hear it. Stop streaming.